us. Thank you.
Thank you, Daifed. And thank you for inviting me to participate in this roundtable. It's truly an honor for me to be able to present the Regent Park Revitalization to all of you here today. I've had the privilege of building and managing a private sector development company here in Toronto for the past 38 years. Over those years, we've developed over 35,000 homes of all shapes and all sizes, and for people of all ages and incomes. But more important than any individual home or community is that we've built a company that uses the power of our business as a platform to drive progressive social change. Our work on the Regent Park Revitalization, as Daifed said, over the past 17 years, exemplifies an approach to business based on a very fundamental assumption, and that assumption is that development must generate positive outcomes for all stakeholders, not just the developer. Now, specifically, the Regent Park Revitalization has clearly demonstrated the power of collaboration and partnership, of a multi-sector, whole-of-community approach to creating inclusive and resilient communities. It has also demonstrated how cities, working with the private sector, can be the primary agents of change in the drive towards achieving SDG 11. Cities and private sector can be the engines of sustainability, affordability, and resilience. In a few moments, I'll outline some of the lessons learned from the Regent Park Revitalization. But first, some context on a journey by which a highly stigmatized, low-income neighborhood is truly being reimagined as a complete community, mixed use, mixed income, and multi-generational. The Regent Park story begins in the mid-1940s, when the Government of Canada and the City of Toronto came together to demolish and rebuild a slum neighborhood just east of Toronto's downtown core. Although homes that had been built in the 1800s had been deteriorating for decades, it was the influx of veterans returning from the Second World War that pushed government into action. A Garden City approach to neighborhood planning was implemented, taking out the public streets and creating inward-looking courtyard buildings that turned their backs on the outside world. And thus, the modern community of Regent Park was born. 2,083 rent-geared-to-income apartments and townhomes on 69 acres in the heart of the city. Unfortunately, however, over the decades that followed, the Garden City model, initiated truly with all of the best intentions, proved to be a total disaster. Within a few years, the downward spiral was propelled by outright neglect and by successive downloading of responsibility from the initial federal ownership to provincial jurisdiction in the 1980s, and ultimately to municipal ownership in the early 2000s. And as that Garden City deteriorated, the stigma of living in Regent Park became deeply embedded, especially for young people who all too often saw guns and gangs and drugs as the only way to break the cycle of poverty, the only way to escape the marginalization that became the central fact of their lives. Despite the challenges, however, a powerful spirit of community also grew deep roots. And in the mid-1990s, residents came together not just to complain about the quality of their homes that were falling down. They came together to develop a vision that would transform their community. That vision, which included 12 principles of revitalization, was hammered out in kitchens and in church basements throughout the community, not at City Hall, and not in a boardroom at the local housing agency. And therein, right there, lies one of the primary lessons learned. In short, the revitalization started on the ground in Regent Park, with local community voices at the very heart of the matter. Foremost among the principles of revitalization was a right of return, an acknowledgement that tenants would move out to make way for demolition, but with a right to come home, to a neighborhood physically reconnected by public streets to the rest of the city and the rest of the world. An important second lesson was enshrining those principles within a social development plan. Now, as you know, historically, zoning bylaws provide the roadmap for neighborhood transformation. But in this case, the social development plan became the defining document, clearly distinguishing revitalization from the much more typical neighborhood renewal, often referred to as neighborhood removal, that results in total displacement and gentrification. With gentrification, marginalized people and families are pushed further to the margins. But in a revitalization, local residents are embraced as true partners with empowerment, capacity building, and inclusive local economic opportunity at the top of the agenda. 17 years ago, we took our first steps on this remarkable journey. As the city embarked on a proposal called Process, we walked the community. We walked all of the streets within that neighborhood and talked with residents about their hopes and their dreams for the revitalization. We also talked to all of the social service agencies about their challenges, about the competition for scarce resources to support the basic health and well-being of local residents. Through this listen and learning tour, we came to understand the need for a collaborative approach that would bring all sectors together under the umbrella of a shared and powerful vision. Although our partnership-based proposal was initially rejected by the City of Toronto, a subsequent proposal called Open the Door for a true public-private partnership that has been one of the fundamental instruments of success. In February 2006, shortly after we were selected as the city's development partner, we stood side by side with local residents as their homes were being demolished. The anxiety was palpable as residents were losing both their homes and, in fact, losing their personal histories. With tears in her eyes, I'll never forget one grandmother, longtime resident of the neighborhood, told me that she felt that her family was being erased. In that moment, in that very moment, I knew that success could only be possible if we continued to listen deeply to local voices. And in fact, through every stage and through every challenge, those voices have inspired us in countless ways. Today, 54 of 69 acres are nearing completion, and just over 5,000 homes have been built, representing an investment of over $1.5 billion. A grocery store, 2 banks, 3 coffee shops, an aquatic center, athletic grounds, and a new 60,000 square foot cultural center provide local services and neighborhood amenities that did not exist within the Garden City. But in addition to all of that, 585 jobs have been created through opportunities directly related to the revitalization within construction trades, hospitality industry, finance, social services, and the administrative sectors. Specifically, our team at Daniels has created job opportunities for 55 local residents, creating over $7.2 million in local and direct economic impact. But above all that, the right of return has been respected. And residents who moved out to make way for the revitalization have moved back into new homes within a new Regent Park. We are often today asked to crystallize the recipe for success, for the success that has been achieved thus far. And this is particularly true since UN Habitat, the Urban Economy Forum, and Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation chose Regent Park for the World Urban Pavilion, a global knowledge exchange hub from which to project best practices in building healthy and resilient cities. Well, the formula, the ingredients of the secret sauce are really quite simple. Firstly, it took bold leadership at the municipal level. Politically, by Councillor Pam McConnell, a fierce advocate for local residents. And within the civil servants, by Derek Ballantyne, a visionary leader of the city's housing agency. Faced with the daunting challenge of transforming 58,000 social housing units that had been downloaded by the province, Derek Ballantyne chose Regent Park in the heart of the city for the first revitalization, and he famously stated, "We just have to start by starting." But it also took a mayor, David Miller, and an entire city council willing to embrace Derek Ballantyne's advice on how to kickstart this complex revitalization. And they did so by issuing municipal bonds totaling $400 million. Those bonds secured by the cash flow from the 58,000 units of housing in the portfolio. These incredible leaders were also willing to embrace a true partnership with our team, a partnership in which both risk and reward were shared. With partnership embedded as a central organizing principle, our team mobilized the strength and the expertise of the corporate and the philanthropic sectors, our banks, insurance companies, telecom providers, our trades, suppliers, and consultants. Every one of them came to the table, along with a host of charitable foundations and post-secondary institutions, each one contributing to that whole of community approach that builds individual capacity and community wealth. But above all else, most importantly, it was the determination of local residents and the strength of a shared vision that held it all together throughout all of the challenges over these years, through political machinations, through bureaucratic upheaval, through 10 CEOs at the housing agency, and, more recently, through 2+ years of the pandemic. But today, as we come out of those 2 years of isolation, we are now focusing our work on several key questions going forward. Can Regent Park continue to evolve as a place that celebrates diversity every day, where social enterprise, social procurement, and social cohesion flourish? Can we implement new pathways to affordable home ownership for local residents, while at the same time creating seamless integration of affordable rental homes within market buildings? Can we co-create an entire neighborhood that is truly inclusive, that goes well beyond the inadequate accessibility requirements of the building code in order to ensure that everyone is welcome and that everyone is safe within the community? Can we design more sustainable buildings and thus a more sustainable future, embracing the wisdom and the worldview of Indigenous elders and knowledge keepers who have lived in harmony with the earth for thousands of years? With our many hands working together, we can do all of that. We can weave together the threads that will make our communities and our cities strong. Cities, working hand in hand with the private sector, can lead us to achieve the goals of SDG 11, but it will take every one of us at this table and beyond to advocate, to facilitate, and to take the bold and the necessary steps that will lead us to a more sustainable and resilient future. Thank you.